Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear sisters and families. My name is Saba Altaf, and on behalf of Quran Institute and UK Islamic Mission Sisters Section, I would like to welcome you to our second session of pre-Ramadan reminders. Last week, if you remember, those who attended, we talked about humbling our hearts and how we can avoid our hearts to get diseased and go hard. Today, inshallah, we will be speaking and reminding mindfulness. You all have to agree with me that before the COVID crisis fell on us, we were living a very fast life, fully depending on technology around us anyway. Now we are in a slow mode, but going through a very anxious and disturbing times. How can we establish and maintain a balanced mind that lives in the present without too much drifting in the past or future? And how can we achieve a contented and peaceful mind? I'm looking forward today, the first speaker, and that is Sister Nabila Said. Sister Nabila lives in London, and I think we have done her introduction many times, that she is very actively involved in her local community, and she volunteers different children projects as well. I would like to welcome you, Nabila.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I'm looking forward to listen to you. Please, Bismillah.
Jazakallah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone. I pray and hope that you all are doing well and everyone is in good health as well. Ameen. Today my topic is mindfulness. I don't know how many of us actually understand what mindfulness is, because for me, although I've come across this word many times, I've actually never had a time to sit and think about what mindfulness means. I've always heard of the word be mindful of doing this and doing that, or what does it actually mean? The whole time when I'm speaking, I really want you to at times close your eyes and just focus on yourself, and just focus on yourself and on your thoughts whilst I speak, inshallah. Bismillah. Okay, so what is mindfulness? As you can see in the picture, there's a heart and the brain. So what exactly is mindfulness? I saw this on the Oxford Dictionary. So it says that mindfulness is the quality or the state of being conscious or aware of something. So it means to be constant, like you're physically there and you're aware about yourself. And in the second definition, it said that it's focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensation, used as a therapeutic technique. So if you go to look at mindfulness, you can take it on a religious perspective, and you can also use it on a psychological perspective. A lot of psychologists speak about mindfulness because it helps a human brain and a human body and the human psychology and spiritual well-being in many, many different ways. So my topic is going to it is to define what mindfulness is, okay, and how does mindfulness reflect on a Muslim and in a lifestyle of a Muslim as well. So mindfulness is also known as Muraqabah, okay, that's an Arabic word, and that's what you call it in Islam, Muraqabah. So here are some of the questions I prepared for you to think about whilst we speak. Is that how can we have more control over our thoughts in the time of information overload and anxiety, especially during the time and the crisis that we're living in? So how can we have more control over our thoughts in this time? How can we discipline our mind during difficult times and when experiencing sudden overjoy or being extremely overwhelmed? And how does mindfulness come in to a Muslim perspective of life? And so can you also think of very important figures throughout the Muslim history or the Muslim world, or the role models who actually practice mindfulness? I was really surprised because I always thought mindfulness just, like I said, it meant it was like a rule to follow where you just have to be mindful, be mindful of your language, be mindful of your dressing, that's just be aware of this and aware of that. But what's exactly going on inside is a different question. And it was only when I started reading into this that I found out that mindfulness existed since the beginning of creation. That Allah made this concept of mindfulness since the beginning of Adam alayhi salam, and each prophet went through a state of mindfulness. So we will, inshallah, we will explore all of this. But I want you to really think about this: that how am I going to get control or seek control over my thoughts, and my feelings, my actions, my behavior, and what does all of this mean to me? So right now, I want you to think about your general everyday things that you do, and since this coronavirus crisis had begun, and before that as well, and prior to that as well, think about what was going on in your life. How are things running? If you are a parent, how are things running? If you're a student, how are things running in your life? What were you doing? Was it too much going on, or was some things that things were just keeping you occupied the whole time? And during that moment, were you present in what you were doing? Were you present when you were doing your essay, for example? Were you present in that essay? Were you physically and mentally and in every single 4D angle of you, were you writing, and were you present in that moment? If you were if you are married and you're or you have children, how present are you in your roles as a wife, for example, or as a mother, or as a carer, or as anyone, whatever role that you play? How present were you in those moments or in those situations in your life? And then when you had to come back to your ibadah in your life, were you able to bring a quality in your life or in your ibadah? Were you able to get quality in your ibadah after facing all the troubles, the situations, or whatever it's been has been going on around in your life? And how do I achieve that presence? How do I achieve that quality? And how do I achieve that thoughtfulness as well? So how can Muraqabah help us? Well, being mindful, so mindfulness means that you discipline your mind so that you can enhance your ibadah. Okay, so it is not about that I will first do my ibadah and then I will gain my mindfulness. It is about, so I will discipline my mind in a way so that I can enhance my ibadah. So this is what mindfulness means in an Islamic perspective. Okay, so we can watch our own selves, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our behavioral patterns, and know, okay, this is the person I am, and this is what goes in my mind, and this is what I need to control, or this is what I need to, help myself, or this is what I need to strengthen more. Okay. On the other hand, unmindfulness, it gives us a knee-jerk reaction. Have you ever seen where if you hit your knee with something on a certain point, your knee just, gives a quick flick? Yeah, that is called a knee-jerk reaction. So mindfulness, if you're unmindful, then you can have the knee-jerk reaction. That means you have instant reaction towards anything that happens in your life. So you're a very reactionary person. But if you have mindfulness and you are a very mindful person, any situation that arises in your life, you do not become very reactionary. It suddenly puts a control on your mind. It puts a control on the rest of your body. You feel calm and you feel like, okay, I can take control of my situation. I think I know what's happening, rather than becoming, oh my God, what's going to happen? And, I don't understand what's going on, and what I need to do. Like it does not send you into a panic mode or panic frenzy. And having Muraqabah, so like I said, it does not make us reactionary. It gives us the freedom over our choices. So it makes us more aware that we are actually free from any of the prisons or the jails of our situation. Yeah, so we are not associated with any of those issues. We feel free, we feel disassociated with them, and we know that, okay, right now, whatever the situation is, I inshallah, I'm going to try and focus on it, and I'm sure I'll make the best choices out of this. And it cultivates a sense of calmness. You know, we always say that we have to be really calm, we have to be really calm, but obviously calmness isn't just something, it's not something that just appears, you know, within a second, or suddenly in a situation. So you have to obviously train your mind, train our bodies in such a way that we attain that calmness as well. So more benefits of it is that having muraqabah or being mindful, it helps us to balance our heart and mind. So what's going on in your heart and what's going on in your mind is at ease, is at peace. So you know that, okay, this is both connected. Okay, it reduces a lot of stress. From a lot of psychologists and stuff, when they did studies on mindfulness, and you know, and they have suggested mindfulness for their clients and stuff, and that's what they said, that it reduced stress a lot in people, because suddenly they were more aware and more in control of their situation. It boosts your memory because you're, like I said, because you're aware of your situation. You know, you're focusing more on what's going on in your brain and in your heart. It improves personal relationships. Yeah, so being very mindful, it means that you will, like I said, if you're married, you will be more aware in conversation with your spouse, or with your children. You'll be more aware in with your children, or if you are or vice versa. If you know, if you're a child, and you know, when you're speaking to your parents, you're more aware, you're present in the moment with them. It enhances concentration. Yeah, it reduces emotional reactivity, like we said, the knee-jerk reaction, and it increases empathy and compassion for people. So as a Muslim, what does mindfulness now mean? So it means that I'm constantly aware that Allah is watching over me. We've heard of the concept of taqwa so many times. You know, Allah always says that you know, people who are God-fearing will be successful. People who are who have taqwa, they will receive this, and they will receive that, and they will get this reward, and they will get that reward. But what is actually taqwa? We come across this phrase all the time, and we always, you know, a lot of the time we translate it as God-fearing. No, it's not God-fearing. It is actually called being mindful. Taqwa means being mindful. So you're afraid of Allah, not in the way that, oh, he will punish you, but you are afraid of upsetting him. You're afraid of, you know, losing that connection with him, and you do everything so wholeheartedly that you want to create a connection with you, and that you want to be aware and know, and you feel that you are being watched all the time, and that Allah is there, not to watch over you as someone that, you know, that someone who wants horrible for you, but someone who's there to look out for you. So that's your concept of being mindful. So you have taqwa. I'm vigilant in my relationship with Allah. I'm vigilant. I know that Allah is looking out for me. Allah is, so, you know, don't take Allah as a spy. Allah is there. He's looking out for you because he wants the best for you. It is, so being mindful is spiritual excellence, is ihsan. So as a Muslim, we have to believe that if you know, that I worship Allah as if I see him. For if I do not see him, he is certainly seeing me. So he is the one he's constantly there for me. He's constantly watching me. Even at this present moment, whilst you're listening to the webinar, whilst I'm talking, you know, to you, I have to make myself aware that Allah is here in this moment right now. I'm present. I'm focused on what I'm doing. At the same time, I'm trying to connect with Allah, and Allah is there looking out for us. Allah says, remember that Allah knows that what is in your soul, so be mindful of him. So Allah says a lot of the time in the Quran as well, to be mindful of him, to be aware of him, to constantly, you know, be aware, you know, whatever actions you're doing, whatever activities that you're running throughout the day, do not forget Allah. Just know that Allah, even right now, I'm writing on a piece of paper, Allah is looking at me. Allah is looking out for me. You know, I'm speaking to my children. Allah is looking out for me, even in this moment in time. So Muraqabah is the actual fulfillment of worshipping Allah. So when you have Muraqabah, so when you have mindfulness, you can come to your salah, you can come to the recitation of the Quran, you can come to different forms of ibadah with complete mindset and being completely whole. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he said that the maintenance of inner Muraqabah is by guarding one's thoughts, intention, and inward movements. This is the reality of the pure heart, which is called Qalbul Salim, by which no one is saved but by coming to Allah with it. So you can only come to Allah with a Qalbun Salim, with a pure heart. This itself is the reality of the inner refinements of the righteous, the devoted, the God conscious. Every inner refinement besides this is deficient. So we have to come to Allah with a Qalbun Salim, a pure heart, a Salim heart, which is calm, it's peaceful, it's content. Okay, so that leads on to my second bit of my topic, and inshallah we'll be done very, very soon, is so, mindfulness, like I said, mindfulness comes in many different ways, which inshallah you'll follow it on into the next part when Sister Summer speaks about it as well. So we first said being mindful means that you're completely aware of yourself, of your surrounding, and that being mindful can help you in so many different ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in every single way it can actually help you. So what is it to be mindful? So mindful, when I was reading about it, when I was researching about it, is actually silence and seclusion. That doesn't mean that we are constantly in seclusion or that we are constantly silence ourselves. No, it means, I'm sure you've heard of the phrase silence is golden. It's like, speaking at the right time or using your phrases at the right time, finding the real context to speak in. Yeah. So there's a hadith of the Prophet where he said that the faith of a servant is not upright until his heart is upright, and his heart is not upright until his tongue is upright. It's a very famous hadith where, so as a human being, until my heart is not right, I can't say anything that's coming out of my mind, out of my mouth, right. So your heart and your tongue has a direct connection. So whatever I feel in my heart, I will say. So if I'm mindful as a person and I'm completely aware of myself and about the people around me and about Allah, then I'll be super, super mindful about what I will say. That means I have to be really careful about what I hold in my heart as well. So you must, Professor Sam also said that you must observe long periods of silence, for it will drive away shaitan and help you in the matters of religion. So like I said, my first question to you was, can you think of people in the Muslim world, or just any role models who practice mindfulness? So this was it. So people who went into silence and seclusion. Okay, Prophet ﷺ and so many other prophets went into seclusion at so many points in their lives. They went into seclusion not to just to distance themselves from the world. It was to find themselves, to connect themselves to Allah. Yeah, it was to find their own selves first, and then to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then to come back with that strength and that wisdom, and that when they put that mindfulness in their prayer, they were able to connect in that prayer. So it was not that they prayed to get mindfulness, but it was the mindfulness that got them the quality in their lives. And so we have, there's plenty of examples in history where we can see mindfulness, that people practiced mindfulness because it gave them that quality of life that they wanted, that satisfaction in life that they wanted. Abu Darda radiallahu anh, he said that silence is a form of wisdom, yet few people practice it. Like, right now we are living in a time where constantly, like, if you don't speak, that's it, you're dumb, or that person does not know how to stand up for themselves. No, it's not saying that you have to be silent throughout your life, that someone's abusing you, that you don't defend yourself, of course not, but it's to speak at the right moment in right time. So for example, if you are in if you're in a place where it's not necessary for you to where there's a lot of back chatting going on, or it's like useless conversation, obviously in those moments it's better that you just be quiet, or you walk away from that situation, or you advise people not to do it. So it's being in that sort of state where you're constantly aware of your situation, that if I'm doing this is not right, this is not what I need to do. However, it's and obviously if you are in a situation where you need to speak, of course you're going to speak. It's not that you have to be silent or mute all the time. Prophet Hassan went into seclusions a lot of time, and that was just him by himself. And there's a very famous saying as well, where you are who you are when you find yourself alone. So you will find out the real you when you're actually alone. You will catch yourself, whatever activity and actions that you're doing, and you're just by yourself, no one's even watching you. That's who we are, real, in our real selves at that moment. So seclusion, is going into silence. And now what is that silence? Is meditating. I know that meditating has a lot of negative connotations in the Muslim world as well, that we always associate it with yoga, or you'll associate it with any other religions or other cultural aspects of other religion and stuff like that. But again, meditation is something that actually occurred since the beginning of creation. So there was this scholar who said that meditation means to abandon preoccupation with the past and the future, and to be aware right now in the moment. So this should be our attitude, for example, when we're in Salah. Okay, so meditation is, so when we go into seclusion, is not, it doesn't mean that we're just not talking. It's about meditating. It's about being conscious of yourself and of your mind, about your feelings, your thoughts, your behaviors, your patterns, what's running through your mind, what are your intentions, what are you feeling in the moment right now. Okay, so and when you meditate, it will cure your hearts from all ill feelings, because like we said, being mindful, it removes any hard feelings from your heart. It reduces stress. It makes you more empathetic and compassionate towards other people. So when you're meditating, it makes you calm. When you are calm, you can think straight. And when you can think straight, you can make the right decision. And when you can make the right decisions, you can inspire. And when you can inspire, you can make a change. So always remember, everything is a link. It's a chain. Everything is connected as a human being. It's so profound, subhanallah, like the way we are as human beings. Like Allah has put such deep thinking in our minds and in our hearts, and just the way we are as human beings, like how we are built psychologically is just so amazing. You know, just the way Allah has spoken about so many different things on how to, you know, gain that mindfulness, and how to gauge with that mindfulness as well. Like I said, I'd never known what mindfulness always meant. Like I'd always come across the word taqwa. Okay, I should be aware of Allah all the time, but you know, really, you know, how are we actually practicing that in our lives? So what does meditation actually look like for us as a Muslim? This will be covered in the next topic as well. So as a very brief outline is salah. So your salah looks like meditation, tadakkur and tadabbur, to reflect and to ponder and to remember. So remembrance of Allah. Dua, so praying to Allah, so asking, supplicating, and reading the Quran. Okay, these are just the forms of what meditation might look like. But again, it will go into a lot of detail. Samar will cover it with you, inshallah. So I would like to finish this topic about mindfulness. Is so that I had found this passage, and I really wanted to read it to you all, about mindfulness in a nutshell. Okay, so I want you all to close your eyes, or you can look at the picture, which is there, that consider your mind as if it were a still pond, and your thoughts are ripples and waves in the pond. We cultivate mindfulness by becoming aware of the ripples and learning to ignore them or engage them at will. A bad thought is like a ripple in a pond. If you touch it or engage it, it only makes the waves stronger. You cannot beat back the waves with a club. You must learn to let them float away. Through silent mindfulness exercise, we let the waves and the ripples simply dissipate. Notice them, acknowledge them, and let them pass on their own as you direct yourself back towards Muraqabah with Allah. This is a practice of mindfulness exercise in a nutshell. So it's not about spiritual ecstasy. You know, some people might think that this might lead them to some amazing, super high spiritual, pleasurable feelings. It's actually practicing it. It's training it. It's about training your mind, your heart, and your body so that you feel good, you feel strengthened, and you feel mindful, and you gain mental strength and spiritual strength to come to Allah wholeheartedly with a qalbun salim. Jazakallah khair for listening. Sabah, I'm done with my topic. I think it's
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, Sabah, we can hear you.
I thought I'm talking to walls. Jazakumullah khair, Nabila. Sorry for my going silent, and it wasn't that silent that you have recommended in your beautiful reminder and excellent talk, really. I've learned a few things. One thing was that I never thought dua is like a meditation. I thought I'm talking to Allah, but you made it a little bit more clear. And another thing I've learned was that ever since I was a little girl, I've been taught about this hadith of imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you just can't do that. And then you were told that then imagine that He subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at you, seeing you. I think your explanation or your definition of mindfulness made that that hadith more clear. It's actually disciplining our state of mind at all times and keeping it, mainly keeping it in present. And I think the 5 times are excellent practice and challenge to exercise the mindfulness as well. Jazakumullah khair, my dear. I'm looking forward now, or shall we proceed to Summer Haq? Summer, yeah, Summer, you're there?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome. You're also from London, only for those who don't know you. Full of beans, very active person, always smiling, school teacher. And you're also, like Nabila, you're also volunteer in UKIM Autistic Children's Project there in London as well. So welcome, Summer, and I'm looking forward to listen to you. Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I was unmuted. I was muted, sorry. I've now been unmuted.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to ask before I begin, can you see my slides, but can you see the black bit as well?
We do see the black bit, and we do see the little slide show little icons, but we also see the exercising mindfulness.
All right, okay, that's fine, no problem. Okay, not a problem. Okay, so this one, let's make a start. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. So, Jazakallah khair, Nabila, previously for talking about Muraqabah, we're going to be delving a lot deeper into the exercise of Muraqabah and how we actually perform Muraqabah and how we do it. And there's a lot of really interesting aspects to this which I didn't know about. And I've had a lot of it. You know, me and Nabila both have had quite a bit of fun researching about this topic. I think there's a lot of things that we take from the surface and we don't delve in deeper enough to try and gauge the entire complexity of this topic. And I think this is a really good example of one of those topics. So let's begin, inshallah. So how do we balance spiritual life? Now, we've heard about what Muraqabah is, we've seen the sort of the philosophical aspect of it, but what does it actually mean? So balancing spiritual life depends on different acts of worship for complete sustenance. So this is a bit like what Nabila was saying towards the end of her talk, where we're looking at various acts of worship, like, you know, salah and dua, so on and so forth, for complete sustenance, like complete focus on these acts of worship. And like what that was said earlier, we should already be in a state of mindfulness in order to exercise it in our worship. And therefore, mindfulness is used to enhance our worship. It's not the other way around. A lot of the time we think we need to be spiritual first in order then to make, so we need to do more and more worship to feed our spiritual selves. But actually, what we'll slowly realize that we need to have a strong muraqabah, we need to have a strong spiritual life in order to therefore use that to enhance the worship. Okay, so there's a slight shift in perspective here. Now, the Prophet ﷺ's example is a really, really good one because nearly everybody knows about how he went into seclusion in Cave Hira on multiple occasions. And bear in mind that this was before revelation. So there is no talk of Islam, there is no talk of the Quran. This is before revelation. And the formula he used in order to be in this silence and seclusion is the following: silence plus the seclusion gave him cultivated presence, which is the quiet awareness of here and now. Now, we've heard this quite a bit in today's topic, is this whole idea of being in the present. We sometimes don't understand what that means. And what it means is that we are completely conscious of every little thing we do. And sometimes we do things out of habit, we do things out of nature. But Muraqabah is the practice, is the exercise of training ourselves to be conscious of every little thing. This is why Muraqabah cannot happen overnight. This is a practice that happens over time. We master it over time. And I know this sounds really spiritual and very sort of different, but this is a key factor in order to achieve mindfulness. So relating back to what Nabila was saying about silence and seclusion, this isn't the sort of silence that you're sat there twiddling your thumbs going, when is food going to be made? This sort of silence is being completely engrossed in the action that you are present in that moment, being completely aware that Allah is watching you and you are committing actions, or you are doing an action under His watch, without sounding intimidating, without making Allah sound like a spy. And that might be the simplest thing. When I say actions, they can be the simplest thing. They can be actions such as clasping your hands together. Now, we clasp our hands together when we're about to meet someone, when we're having, we're talking. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of hand gestures, although you guys can't see it. But it's this exercise in silence. You are your true self when you are in silence and in seclusion. But if you layer that with the idea of only Allah watching you, you achieve, or you slowly begin to achieve, this state of mindfulness. You are becoming conscious of everything you do. Now, Al-Ghazali has 4 forms of meditation, and this is actually nothing out of the ordinary. So the first one is remembrance of Allah. The second one is deep contemplation, Quranic recitation, and supplication. And the same way in life, we have a balanced diet to eat. We have our carbs, protein, so on and so forth. Spirituality the balanced diet for spirituality are these 4 things. Okay, and these 4 things, it does not mean that you sit in silence and seclusion reciting 3 juz of the Quran in one go. That is not what it is saying. It is saying that you are contemplating the act of reading Quran. You are contemplating on the act of doing dua. It's not, these acts of worship often we do as an add-on to our daily life. But now these are the forefront. These are our main activities, and we are now really thinking about the way that we are doing them. Now, Al-Suyuti has 4 stages of thought, and this was I think one of my favorite things that I've learned from this entire topic, because it's really, subhanAllah, how intricate this slide is in the way that Allah has created us and our thoughts is beautiful. So the first thing that we have in our mind, let's use an example. Actually, maybe this is probably maybe I'll put it into context. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you suddenly decide, I'm going to make pasta today. All right, that is a sudden thought. Okay, that's the first stage of your thoughts. That is something you haven't even thought about. You haven't thought about ingredients at this point. You haven't thought about cookery. You haven't thought about whether the gas is working. You haven't thought about anything like that. You wake up in the morning and you think, I want to make pasta. Okay. The second point is a thought you actually give attention and consideration to. So at this point, you've woken up, you thought, I want to make pasta, and you've kind of sat up in bed and go, pasta's really tasty. I think the family will enjoy it. I'll make pasta. Okay. Then you have the inner dialogue when you seriously consider acting upon that thought. So now you're still sat up in bed and you think, okay, do I have basil? Do I have pasta sauce? Do I have pasta? Do I need to go to Tesco? Is it going to be really busy? Is it the right time? Do I have the car? Is there enough petrol in the car? Now you're having this inner dialogue with yourself because you're seriously considering to make pasta this evening. And finally, it's the final act, the final stage of your thought is the decision you make to put the thought into action. And then you think, well, you know what? I think Tesco will be fine. I think they're the main ingredients. Let's go. Let's make pasta today. So although in your general life, in a general day, to a normal person, to anyone actually, you would wake up and you would make pasta that day. But actually, subhanAllah, these are the 4 things that your mind is going through when you go through a thought process. Now, Muraqabah is being conscious of this. It's being completely conscious of all 4 of these stages. And something that maybe we can practice is being aware of when we're doing each of those things. Now, often, before anything, a lot of us experience this inner dialogue. Before anything, you're angry, you're sad, you're happy, you're upset, whatever. You are having this inner dialogue constantly. Our minds are trained to have this inner dialogue. We're talking to ourselves nearly all the time in our head. But actually, that is the 3rd stage of our thought process. So if we find ourselves, and you will see in the next slide when we're talking about reactions, you will find that often when we make a sudden reaction to something, we have been hasty in stage 1 and stage 2 and gone straight to stage 3 and stage 4. Okay, so Muraqabah is really slowing it down, slowing everything down. So relating to what I was just saying, exercising mindfulness is not about suppressing thoughts. Okay, it's not about saying I need to stop thinking about everything and I must only be very spiritual. That's not what Muraqabah is saying. Exercising mindfulness is not about that. Because what ends up happening is if you suppress those thoughts, you are only going to think about those more because it is you haven't received closure from it. Okay, so what it is about is becoming aware of your thoughts and distancing your reaction to it. Now, as humans, we have been created to have good thoughts and bad thoughts. Sometimes we can't control them, and that's absolutely okay. Allah here is not telling us, or we're not learning from this, that you know what, we need to have pure minds, or we must always think about, you know, the good things, etc. Because essentially that is almost impossible. We all have thoughts, good thoughts and bad thoughts. So what we're trying to do with Muraqabah is to distance our reaction. Is we have a thought, like stage 1, we give us time, and then we proceed with the inner dialogue and the action. Okay, so it gives us time to control the reaction. Often we are far too quick to react. And what happens when we don't give us time? What happens when we don't give us time is that we are susceptible to Shaitan's influence. Because we're not thinking. We just think about the first thing we say, or we think about the first thing we want to do. We don't give us time. And in between that, Shaitan comes in with his influence and his haste. And that's why a lot of us regret decisions we make in haste. And now probably a lot of you are thinking about a time where you really misjudged things and you think, oh yeah, I really regret making that decision. It's because of this. It's because of we did not take time. And as humans and in our busy lifestyles, we do a lot of things in haste, which is why it is so vital that we take out the time, even if it is for 5 minutes in a day, to seclude. And we'll talk about how to do that in just a minute. Now, putting all this into action. Now, how do we now go into this mode of seclusion? How do we do that? Now, the first step is a 3-step process. The first step is to choose a time of day, a consistent time of day. A lot of people might want to choose the Tahajjud. The Tahajjud is a very good time for this because it gives you time to yourself. You are alone, nobody is awake. And this is also, you could argue that this is a hikmah of Allah to give us the time of the Tahajjud, so that we can be alone with our thoughts and Allah. Okay? We choose a secluded area. Now, with those with children, I completely understand seclusion. A secluded area is probably the last thing you're going to find in your house right now. But for 5 minutes a day, I'm sure there is some place in your house, inshallah, where you can get some sort of peace and comfort. And choose a comfortable posture. By this, I don't mean sit in a by this, I don't mean lie down. I don't mean, do something that's comfortable for you. You need to be in a very comfortable position in your house, anywhere. at an appropriate time of the day. And this is something you're going to continue religiously for a certain period of time. Now, step 2 is you are focusing awareness on your natural breathing. Now, this sounds really basic. You're probably asking, why on earth is someone telling me to breathe? But the reason I'm telling you this is because when we start breathing and we are conscious of our breathing in our inhaling and exhaling, we start to feel our presence. We start contemplating, we start slowing down, okay? And then we progressively relax the muscle tension throughout our body, okay? So it's literally we're relaxing. You know, often when you're nervous about something, you clench your fists, relax, okay? And then slowly settle the state of your heart and mind by feeling the life and energy Allah has given to you. Now, that's a very complex thing to do, and we can't do that all at once. But if you have ill feelings or if you have a heaviness in your heart, put it to one side and just feel your presence, feel your body, feel your breathing, okay? And finally, step 3, perceive this feeling of mindfulness. You're not achieving anything here, but to feel yourself. And I know this sounds very yoga-like and very, like I was saying earlier, very different. Know and feel that Allah is watching you, and try and silence the inner dialogue and focus on being with Allah in that moment. And if you have any elements of, being distracted with whichever thoughts, recite the dhikr of Allah so that you can return to that state. Now, there's a really good exercise which relates to this, and that's called the art of listening. The art of listening follows a very similar structure to this. But with the art of listening, what is required, well, an example of the art of listening is you do step 1 and you start writing. You just start writing anything. And you slowly start listening to your pencil, writing on this piece of paper. You look and you gaze into the shapes that you are making. You do that first and you get familiar with that sound. And then what you do is you then put the kettle on. And then you listen to the sound of the kettle. And when you've mastered the art of listening, you can simultaneously listen to both. Okay? So the aim here is to be, in this example, you are being mindful so that when you do your act of worship, you're doing 2 things simultaneously. You can channel your thoughts, I won't say bad thoughts, but you can channel the distracting thoughts and focus on Allah. It's channeling your thoughts. It's not suppressing them. Okay? You can think about all the things about your past, your present, and your future later. There is time and place for that. But when you're looking at seclusion and silence, you are looking at that moment and your existence in that moment and the fact that Allah is watching you. Now, the act of meditation is repeatedly bringing yourself back to the state of Muraqabah through the remembrance of Allah and dhikr until it's a natural habit, which is why I was saying that this is not something that you can do overnight. This is something that happens over a longer period of time. And if you do this regularly, it will allow you to have an easy and natural presence in prayer. And then this is where khushu' in salah comes from. So when people say, oh, you must have khushu' in salah, khushu' in salah is a process which is very far. Khushu' in salah comes after you've practiced this. And as a result of that, you strengthen your mental and spiritual muscles. And as Nabila was saying earlier, it provides stress relief and gives you better focus and attention. And it will give you the ability to regain control of your thoughts, emotions, and desires because of simply giving you that reactionary space. You will begin to notice your thoughts as they appear, which will give you enough time to decide to act on the good and dismiss the bad. Okay, now if we take, for example, some other prophets who have gone into this state of seclusion, you could say, another very good example is Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right, even before prophethood, what did he do? What did Allah say? Allah said to look at the sun. Allah said to look at the moon. Right, these things, this is why Allah tells us to ponder. Now, sometimes we read this in the Quran and you just think, oh, pondering, we don't really understand what that means. I can see the tree outside my window and I can see stars at night. That's not the point. It's using those creations of Allah to bring you into this state of muraqabah, which is why the Prophet ﷺ, which is why Ibrahim alayhi, why these prophets use the creations of Allah, why Allah himself talks about his own creation to use as signs, to use to bring you that mental and that spiritual calmness. Now, an interesting fact is, remember, the Prophet ﷺ, before prophethood, he was exercising this state of muraqabah. And then the revelation came. So it was not the other way around. Back to my first point. The prophets, they first were in seclusion and then Allah gave them the revelation. So for us to think that by praying we are going to be better in our muraqabah, it's the other way around. So we also need to practice this state. We need to think about our actions. We need to, but not, we can't sit in a crowded room thinking about our actions. We need to be in a position where we are completely focused on the here and now. So inshallah, if there was anything that we took from this, or something that I took from this when I was doing my research, is that we all really need to, I think, slow down. You know, and subhanAllah, I think this whole idea of the current situation that we are in has given us the opportunity to slow down. And you realize that actually a lot of the things that Allah implements in, you know, in the Quran and the things that He tells us stem from this fact. You know, Ramadan, where we're not eating, we can use the time that we are eating to seclude ourselves for, you know, to exercise this state. You know, when we go for Hajj or when we go for Umrah, these are periods where we can use spiritual mindfulness, where we can exercise mindfulness. You know, yes, they are actions. Of course, they are fard actions if you want to talk about the actual deed, but we're not talking about the actual deed. We're talking about the mindset. So everything in our religion, subhanAllah, has been related back to the mind. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. That's our intention. And our intention is set through this, through Al-Suyuti's 4 stages of thought. Because our intention, we get the thawab of doing that deed at the last stage of Al-Suyuti's 4 stages of thought. So, you know, we really need to, I think, really calm down, slow down in this busy life. I understand that we've got things going on, absolutely, 100%. But even for 5 minutes, I think this is a practice that all of us can really begin to engage with, inshallah. And lastly, just to finish us off on, inshallah, is remember that Allah knows what is in your souls. So be mindful of Him. You know, Allah, be mindful of Allah. Allah gives us all the tools in order to be mindful of Him. So, Jazakallah khair for listening, and I hope you've all taken something from this, from both our talks, inshallah. May Allah give us the tawfiq and the guidance to practice this in a state and to be mindful of Allah, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. It was such a powerful reminder. Honestly, I have to really concentrate on what you're saying. Try to do my mindfulness in all the things that were being explained. And you know, Al-Ghazali's 4 stages, I realize how quickly and like a robot fashion we do our ibadat. At least sometimes I'm doing it in a hurry. And there are very few moments in our lives when we are actually doing the way it should be done with full khushu. And you've pointed out some times and steps as well to achieve at least a good salah and other ibadats as well. But one of the things I wanted to add is that if we do the salah slow in action, it does help with a little bit of achieving that state, because the faster our salah is, the more less khushu we will have in it. So standing up and then staying there and then slowly going to the ruku and then slowly getting up and you know, like there is a hadith as well that you have to calm down all your muscles before the next action comes, and that helps a lot. Not that I'm one of having great salahs, but there are moments that you are very, very happy that you've done a little bit better salah. Jazakumullah khair, both sisters. Your reminders were excellent, and as you prayed, that we hope that we can establish them in our lives. I think it would be good if we get some feedback from the sisters, if they understood it, how they feel about it, if there are any questions. If you don't have a question, if you are the one who can achieve a little bit of khushu in your ibadats, then share it with us. But I would like to request sisters to make your comments as short as you can, because there are quite a few sisters online. So is that Tahira or Amina in the technical team? If you can check.
Yes, Sabah, we...
Yeah, Amina, and you raised hands.
Yes. Let me check. Yeah, I've got Sister Asma Parveen, but sorry, I can't see her mic. I can give another sister a chance if she... Yes, I've got Sister Faradar with us. So I can open the mic if she... I can open the mic for her if she can, you know, speak. Sister Farah, can you open your mic, please? Okay, I think that long probably she got some problem with her mic. We can look for other sisters if they are. Just give your feedback, sisters, about the session. That would be really helpful for all the audience and for the speaker as well. So,
sometimes people mute themselves, so if you can check your little mics that they are not muted by yourself. So
yeah, of course, Sister Nazia Ali, she's self-muted, but she got her question here. She's saying that recently I have started reading extra duas during my sujoods and for more concentration. So she got some problem with her mic, so she's writing down her feedback. There are some sisters who have written some feedback on that question panel.
Summer, what would you like to say to add where a sister has said that she has been doing extra du'as in her sujood and that has helped? What would you say to encourage other sisters as well?
Are you asking Sister Summer? Yeah.
Yeah, is she on?
Yeah, she's on. Actually, I have muted her mic. Yes, Sister Summer.
Yeah, here I am. Sorry, could you just repeat that question, please?
It's not a question, actually. It's one of the tips that she is giving, and I really wanted you to say something that she said that recently she started adding some du'as in her sujood, and that has made things better for her salah. What would you like to add?
I think any form of act or ibadah will strengthen and enhance your spirituality, definitely. And I think the point to take from here is if you're making dua in sujood, you're slowing down the process of sujood, isn't it? You're not doing a sujood like down and up all of a sudden. You're slowing it down and you're really constant. You are focusing on the action of sujood. And that builds into this whole idea of mindfulness because you are focusing on one action at one time. So that's what I would like to add. So yeah, definitely. I think, you know, those sorts of actions, if you're I think my advice or my take would be to focus on one action at one time, because often I think what we'll take away from this is, oh, we're going to start doing 3 things. and they're all going to be allocated a different time, so on and so forth, but really just focus on one thing. So if the sister is really just focusing on the one sujood and reciting du'as in that one sujood, that will inshallah definitely encourage and exercise that action.
Jazakallah. Yes, excellent idea to take one thing at a time.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got Sister Adila here. She, if you allow me, I can unmute her.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, Sister Adila, you can speak now.
I just want to add up to the session. I really like the mindfulness and also the other Mediterranean to do is the one that you sorry, I've got the word now. Really good exercises. I think really like the way she explained the first session, and the second one was really good because you're actually going into that that moment that she wants us to take. I actually was going into it and thinking about and letting everything go. And there was another good example of the puddle that she said you have to let go, otherwise if you put a hand on that puddle, on this pond, and if you put a hand on it, will make circles, so you're going back to your thinking. So it was really good. I must say that the way she expressed and explained was really good. I really liked the talks.
Jazakumullah khair, sister. Thank you. Is there anybody else with any question or feedback, or you've got your own tips? Do let us know.
There are, if you can read some, feedback. There are very good feedback from some sisters on that panel.
We can't hear you very well, Amina.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Better, but not as good as it was.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I just asking you to from the question panel. There are some very good feedback given by the sisters. So do you want me to read that, or you can read? You can see the question panel if you can.
I will have a quick look. Chat.
Yeah, if you click on the question sign, then there's a very good feedback given by by few sisters.
I don't have a question sign.
Okay, so do you want me to read that?
Okay. Hold on a minute.
Yeah. Just if you click on, if you click on the question sign next to any sister's name.
Yeah, I did, but I can't. You read the first one and I'll try to sort it.
Okay, yeah. There's a feedback from Sister Aisha Ivan. She said she loved that, mashallah. That was really nice, and Jazakallah khairan. And one of the sisters said it's brilliant session, mashallah. And one of the sisters said, mashallah, this webinar is was amazing, and with lots of hearts. And yes, you can see that you can get the recording inshallah in a couple of days. And one of the sisters said it's really amazing